Chapter 43. Liberation Day 7 Syntholo. Only one darkling remained, the other left into the darkness. He had opened the hatch releasing Ruka and Lilac. The darklings couldn't touch Ruka because of some racial ability, and could not touch Lilac while she was wearing a shroud. While she was wearing the shroud that made her look like Mistress Kaylani. Kalani, the Praetorian Prefect bearers. How many knew? How many other women had worn it? Was the first Kaylani he'd met the same as the one that exiled him? The woman he'd loved for his entire life had never existed. His loyalty and every word he'd spoken in her defense turned to ash in his mouth. A life of chastity, a life of service to a lie. It burned knowing the woman he'd broken his sacred vow with was right the whole time. Even that vow had been based on a lie. He wandered through the woods most of the night, until finally collapsing beneath the weight of a lifetime lived under the oppressive yoke of deception. "I'd break all my vows for you," Nelfrie's words echoed through his head, a cruel reminder from his past. "I turned my back on something true to honor a lie," Syntholo said as he began shifting back to his Terran form. He laid there until a new day dawned. "Burn. I thought this was supposed to be a rescue mission. The only life signs I'm detecting are botanical," he said uneasily. "I think we should just report back that the mission is a failure." "Dock with the station," the commanding officer said sternly. "We've been instructed to download the station records and conduct a search for survivors." "I have a bad feeling about this," he said nervously. "I have a cyberpath friend. How about we just drop a relay and—" "A friend," the commander scolded. "This is a high-security operation. Does this supposed friend of yours meet those criteria? Well, then start the docking procedure." "Yes, sir," Ogeron said with forced enthusiasm as he lowered his neck. "Gowrie." "Gowie," Juan said as he opened the door to the medical bay. "We stay in space a little longer." "Gowrie," she pronounced her name slowly, emphasizing every sound. "You pass screening tests before we land." They spoke a heavily accented variant of Terran Common. It was going to take her some time to get used to it, but she was tired of them mispronouncing her name. Hero. The Star Chaser Spire was the tallest and most advanced housing of any clan on Carmel. TRO tagged along as Sarah and Vakir toured the facility with Mari, showing them the improvements they'd made during the years they'd spent with the mercantile marines. TRO waited until they were alone for her chance to speak privately. "Please, let me come with you," TRO pled. "I can follow you in the mongoose." "You know our answer," Maori said flatly. "It's still no." "There's nothing left for me here," TRO whimpered. "Even Miyakos turned his back on me and I thought he loved me." Maori hissed. "Talk to us after you've had your kittens. Just leave them for your clan to take care of or something. Our ship isn't a nursery and Beta is no gynecologist. Think long and hard about this, cub. You're not our family. You're just cargo. If you're gonna run away every time some guy breaks your heart, you'll spend half your life running. Grow up, figure yourself out without defining yourself in relation to someone else. Then you can ask us again. Got it?" Tears fell to the floor as TR lowered her head. She watched, sniffling as the others walked away, leaving her behind. "Zuri. No video? Where are you now?" Aida asked over her communicator. "It's on," Azuri said sorrowfully. "I'm just sitting here in the dark. I'm back home at my namesake." "You're back at your place on Azure?" Aida sighed. "Now that brings back memories." A distant light bathed the room in an ethereal bluish glow. Azuri turned her head to hide her tears, then looked down away from the gleam off her small assault craft. "Is that the T-Tarn gate?" Aida asked. "Just a 6-hour jump away," Azuri said solemnly. "We both have our orders. Don't do anything that'll paint a target on your head," Aida said sadly. "I'm going to miss him too." "He's not dead yet," Azuri said defiantly as the light winked out. "You heard Ketsa. We can't interfere. This has to happen. There's only one person who can stop this, and if she intervenes, you know what comes next." "Fuck Ketsa. Fuck his predictions," Azuri cried out in anguish. "Fuck Navari for telling me do nothing while he's torn to shreds." "You know how much I care about Uja," Aida said as tears welled up in her eyes. "You know who they'll send for you if you cross that line. Please don't make me do that. I can't lose both of you. My heart just can't take it," Aida pleaded. "I just want to hold him one last time," Azuri wailed. "If you run to him, you'll die too. You'll both die for nothing. If you ask Lady Darkseid to stop it, she'll fall right into that bitch Praetorian Prefect Green's trap. Who will enforce our agreement with Kalmia then?" The sorrow, anguish, and rage in Aida's voice was undeniable. "I understand," Azuri said in response to words unspoken. "I guess this is goodbye then." "It sounds like you've made your decision. I'll miss you both," Aida said with a quivering smile. Azuri disconnected the call, smashed her communicator, flung open the sliding door, ran to him and never looked back. Summary. She missed Oleander's fleet's departure by less than an hour. Tyrell seemed moody. The twins were off showing Cass around the ship and Louis was on his way back to the array. Only a half-dozen or so of Oleander's crew members had stayed behind at the array. Blight, having gotten exactly what she wanted from Tyrell, left with the fleet. Summary stood, staring, watching the colors of the nebula slowly churning. Grax reported to Gowroon, who relayed important information to her, but there was a significant delay, and they clearly put different values on what information was worth sharing. From her life as Summary, she knew where one of the communication relay bunkers was located. But Gowroon felt target prioritization should be left to Grax and urged her to trust his judgment. He had a point. Grax was their man on the ground. Bruno, ow, ouch, Sato yelped as he massaged her hip. There is place for this, Bruno grumbled as he applied more warming salve. They'd ask questions I'd rather not answer, Sato blushed. So will work, Bruno snorted. I had nice date first with Haruka last night. I'm still feel good. I will tell them you hurt yourself. So did you too, Sato began. Sato called out in pain as he realigned her dislocated hip with his broad hands and popped them back into their sockets. Stay here and rest, Bruno said. Put on more ointment if pain gets bad. Thank you, Sato said meekly. Maybe we don't tell Kali about this. Jamie said she seemed twitchy today, he said as he tousled Sato's hair, stood up and turned to the door. Who's Jamie? She asked under her breath. Bruno left without answering. Kali. His fur helped him blend into the shadows as he made his way through the streets, but it couldn't hide his mind. Gojo, she thought to him forcefully. He fell to the ground, cradling his head in his hands. You're coming with me, Kali hissed. We need to have a little talk. Her black tail menaced him while her brown pair forced the Pashai to his feet. She felt a panic-driven impulse rising within him. Don't bother calling security, Kali growled. They make me feel less reasonable. What's this about? He asked shakily. Those sex tourists you brought here injured my friend. I know you brought her there. She used the words from your little pitch. I told you it's all consensual, he tried to balance his fear with his insistence. And I don't own the company, I just work for them. You also told me they take a single course before they get on the ship, Kali scoffed. Tell whoever is in charge to hire medical staff. Make sure those women are treated better or face the consequences. She could feel the thoughts racing through his head. Good, she said as her tails released him and slid back into the folds in her armor. Hey, Adyarxi, he said timidly, are we, fix this and maybe I'll consider it, Kali smirked and walked off. She felt a little better after dealing with that, but she was still a bit angst and didn't know why. Last night's operation had been a joint effort between her training corps and Team 2, which was overseen by Grax. She hadn't fully recovered from the loss of her leech, and needed another week or two of downtime. The E2 had an entire mythology built around Syntholo's assistance during their conflict with alien invaders. When he told them about the plight of the Silshi, a disturbing number of E2 were willing to rally behind him. To them he was a legend, and admittedly Syntholo had played an integral role in their revenge against Belladonna. She knew better than to try to compete with that. It could fracture whatever cohesion they had left and served as a well-timed boost to morale. The captive Silshi were being held at 2 locations they knew about. This could quickly turn into a major operation and they couldn't be sure there wasn't a third site. She agreed to entrust the majority of her people to his care, during her recovery. As long as he approved his strategy with Grax. After which he'd be put in charge of his own group. Enlisting the aid of as many of the estimated 2,000 Silshi as possible, even if only a quarter signed up, it would nearly double their forces, and Silshi were fierce combatants. Liberation Day 8 Tyrell. He monitored the array as the creature that was once a baby weaver, Shelly, moved into position. He didn't know what to expect when it ate that mutation core, any more than he knew what it would look like tomorrow. Over the course of its most recent trip, it had partially incorporated Gregor's old flagship into itself. It was getting harder and harder to tell which parts were technological and which were biological. Sam's ugly little animal friend was back on the array, being followed around by one of those weird shadow things wherever he went. The twins and that creepy little Lamentic kid found the shipbuilder CAD room earlier. He disabled ship printer access and decided to leave them to it as long as it kept them out of his hair. Gowroon had sent a message confirming Gowry's retrieval. He wanted to buy some decommissioned military base in the tundra on Echelon Zeta. For some reason it had to be purchased under the name Lady Darkseid, which was easy enough to arrange, but they still had to pay for it. Seemed a bit wasteful and excessive, but she bought it anyway. The twins would probably enjoy it. It was nice to see Sato Cho had finally updated the hotel system administrator list to include Shadow Fak and Juliet, alongside Pink Ice. He spent a few hours with Jean verifying the network security protocols. They made a few adjustments then rebooted the surveillance systems. Chloe. The sound of her communicator beeping woke her up. She cursed quietly while rolling over and stroking the top of her earpiece. Zettech. Since when does an air conditioning company leave you multiple messages asking if you? It was her echelon friend Dimitri. This was his last full standard day. He was scheduled to leave the system tomorrow, which explained his urgency. It was their last chance to spend time together. She'd been so busy and distracted she'd forgotten. She transmitted a response while riding the elevator down to the lobby. Miss Kali? Jamie said nervously as the elevator door opened. The hotel entry was propped open and a work crew was busy getting everything ready for tomorrow. I'm in a rush, Kali said as she stepped into the lobby. Wait, put this on at least for the workers' comfort, Jamie said urgently while holding out the furry bra Kali left on the desk the previous night. Kali blushed brightly with the sudden realization she was in such a rush she'd forgotten to get dressed. Jamie offered to help her. Kali accepted. Kali rushed to the bar area to grab the device she'd stashed in a locked cabinet behind the bar. One of the workers had unlocked, opened it and emptied it out. She wasn't sure if she should be more upset with them or herself. In a functional bar, that cabinet was used to store Kulai Surprise, a specialty drink sold by the Kailani Dominion with its own storage area. Of course they had a key. She frantically searched behind the cabinet. A member of the work crew pointed it out to her. It was on the floor under the counter. She noticed a half-dozen bottles under there that had been marked for disposal. They'd gone bad. She took the box and did her best to cover the product name while rushing back to the elevator and riding it down to the sub-basement where there were no cameras. Death's Embrace was marketed for a fetish that disgusted her. It functioned by slowly reducing the user's vaginal temperature to make the transition more comfortable. No knacks required. The process could be reversed to safely bring the temperature back to a normal range. Once playtime was over, she fastened the strap around her thigh, made sure everything was set correctly, then inserted the cylindrical device. According to the documentation, it would take up to 40 minutes for it to reach the target temperature. I hope he appreciates all this, Kali grumbled as she dropped the empty packaging on the floor and headed upstairs to get dressed. Summary. Cass was sitting on the table with her legs hanging over the edge. Sam was using a kinetic field to apply direct pressure to her arm without touching her. Ziku and Yari were standing just outside the door of the medical bay staring down at the floor. You two have to be more careful, Sam scolded. It was the box's fault, Yari objected. It bit her, Ziku insisted. Really, Sam balked. It grew a mouth and just bit her arm. You chasing each other around a box of scrap parts had nothing to do with it. It went rawr, Cass giggled. Don't defend them. They know better, Sam grumbled. We'll be more careful, Yari pouted. Just don't play in parts recycling, okay? Sam said with an exasperated sigh. We followed her in there, Ziku said defiantly. Once the bleeding stopped, Sam mended the injury with her mistrionics. Just be more careful, Sam scolded, and stay out of the restricted areas. You too, Cass. Sorry, Mama Sam, all three of them said in unison, then rushed off to continue playing. Hey, Sam, Tyrell said over the room intercom. I just heard from Jean that the woman who was responsible for your body's death died yesterday. Do you care? Not really, Sam shrugged. I'm not that person anymore. Wait, did you say responsible? The woman who ventilated the ship and the woman who sucked out Sam's soul to save herself were equally at fault. Tell them I want no further involvement in their petty rivalry. Got it, Tyrell said. Just passing it along. Some Lamentic reported the death of one of their rivals and Jean's been dealing with the blowback from it all day. This is the sort of mess that makes me grateful I'm retired. I'm good, Sam snickered. Do you need to talk? Nah, Tyrell grumbled. I have enough trouble understanding women of my own species. I must be out of my mind to even consider. I'll be right up, Sam laughed. Strawberries patch. Set rights plus admin shadow FAQ. Strawberries patch. Set rights plus admin Juliet. Pink Ice. Okay senpai. It's all set now. Juliet. We should verify the security configuration. Shadow Fak. I'd avoid the security room camera unless you want an eyeful. Pink Ice right now? Cho accessed the security office camera hoping to catch Bruno and Haruka in the act, but it was Kali and some guy. She did a double take and looked again. Wait, I know that dick. I fucked him on the night of the shuffle. Cho disconnected. Juliet, who's she with? Pink Ice, a guy with a frosty cock. Juliet, does he work for a refrigeration company? Shadow Fak, I forwarded you a copy of that Z-Tech business card. Didn't you bring up the company records before putting in that service call? Gileet, no. Why would I? It was Lady Cyanide's prank, not mine. Pink Ice, what are you two talking about? The name Cyanide was deleted from the conversation log and replaced by the word Starlight. It was capitalized like a name. Shadowfac, unimportant. I'm done checking the settings. I'm ready to restart the security system now. Everything look right to you, Gileet? Yevet, hum on. I'm recording a few seconds of this for Starlight. I'll title it, Just Checking Her Radiator. Then I'll triple check the settings. Pink Ice, hey senpai, while she's doing that I need to rub on more lotion. Want to make sure I don't miss any spots? Shadowfac, sure, I'll hire you a local messer. Pink Ice, that's not what I meant. Gileet, are you refusing his offer? Pink Ice, of course not. Gileet, system check is complete. Where's my massage? Shadowfac, right here waiting for you to visit. Gileet, I'll have to contact Blight to check your personal references before I consider it, and you still owe me dinner. Strawberries Patch, security subsystem restart initiated. By Pink Ice. Rebooting the system was estimated to take 3 minutes, which meant it would actually take at least 6 and feel like 9. He felt a lot better today. Bruno had a real talent for helping with muscle and joint problems. Most of the kitties at NIM had asked him for help once or twice. He was willing to help out the male kitties, but they actually had to ask for his help. With the women he was quick to offer. He never made it weird, and she appreciated that. When she'd goaded Cully into selecting Bruno as her kitty option during the quick shuffle, she never expected her to actually go through with it. She felt really bad about it when Bruno pushed too deep and shorted out her nervous system. Akim said Guy and Cho were able to get her fixed up. He helped her relax her muscles while Cho used a cyberpathic ability to generate a quick electric jolt to jumpstart her nerves. If it was just a joint problem, Bruno probably could have fixed it himself. While Cully was off having sex with Bruno, Cho had been playing with the Elysian's icy cock. Why was it okay for them to share Ogeron, but not the Elysian? Cho pouted. By the time she'd finally worked up the nerve to ask if they'd be willing to let her join in, the messer arrived. The security system came back online 2 minutes later. Cully and her friend were already gone. It was nice of Tyrell to pay for the rubdown, but that wasn't really the point. She wanted to be seen as a rival by Gileet, not just some inexperienced kid. She'll never be good enough to compete with her as a cyberpath. If she could just get Tyrell to see her as a woman, maybe then she'd be worth keeping around for a reason better than because Lady Darkseid said so. She felt Gileet reconnecting to the Strawberries Patch server, but Tyrell didn't log back in. Bruno's special medicinal salve did wonders, and the messer was well-trained and well-disciplined. Men who worked at the parlors on Erosha didn't become aroused or flirt, regardless of where or who they were massaging. She'd consented to the deluxe package. Tyrell paid him to be thorough, and he was. He worked the knots out of muscles she didn't even know existed, and not once did it feel strange or arousing. When he was done, she thanked him for his service and he showed himself out. Cho took her time getting dressed. She decided to wear one of the outfits Ogeron bought her. It was a short-sleeved, one-piece dress. It looked like leather but was a much more supple material. It had a built-in bra to give her added support and held her hips nicely, even if it did have the tendency of riding immodestly high. It was the sort of outfit that demanded thoughtful consideration of the choice of panties. They were always just an inch away from peeking out. A zipper started between the breasts and ran all the way down. It was designed for play and swift removal. It was the sort of outfit that screamed, "Please notice me." She never got around to wearing it for him, but she was dying to try it out. A special security code was required for elevator access to the top 4 floors and the sub-basement level. She'd claimed the 14th floor for herself. It was the closest to both the penthouse and 12th floor laundry area. Ogeron and Bruno both had private rooms on the 15th floor, which was as much a place for extra storage as privacy. Having a floor to herself was a great way to make sure she wouldn't get in anyone else's way. Her room was laid out like an apartment. Her computer had its own room, but there were still 8 rooms on the floor that she had no idea what to do with. She'd fantasized about inviting a different cute guy to stay in each and wait on her hand and foot. Maybe a couple girls too, but Cully and those tails of hers belonged wherever she could fit. The elevator arrived as she approached. It was nice not having to wait for it, but that would change eventually. The elevator door opened to the lobby. There was a young blonde woman standing behind the reception desk wearing a formal, yet distinctly feminine uniform. Both of the front doors were open, and a group of workers were carting supplies into the building. The girl was small-chested with almost no hips. She had delicate features, a slight build, and a soft voice. They certainly looked like a woman, but their movements were wrong. Instead of leading with their toes, they walked pelvis first, which is normal for people with dicks. They finished directing the workers. "What's going on?" Cho asked as she stepped off the elevator. The woman turned to face her, blinked twice and said, "Wow, I want your body." "What?" Cho said, outraged. "That came out all wrong," she blushed. "I mean, I wish I had your body." "No, I." Cho smirked. "Just answer the question." "You must be Strawberry. I'm Jamie. You weren't here when they offered to let me work here." "Okay," Cho said slowly, "not really what I was asking, but it's a start." "Oh, them," Jamie said while motioning toward the doors. "Kali is letting them use her hotel to hold a sex workers meeting." "Here?" Cho asked. "Yeah, it's a last-minute thing." Jamie sounded like a kid with a crush. It might have been cute if they stopped talking for a few seconds. "Jamie," Cho said firmly, "do you mean we're hosting the Flesh Row Vendors Conference?" "Yes," Jamie said nervously. "It'd be nice if they warned me about all this," Cho sighed dramatically, "but if they're holding it here, I guess I'll have to invite myself." "Oh, I should probably tell you," Jamie started saying, "that you're male below the belt." "No. Well, yeah, but..." "Who told you?" Jamie sounded horrified. "That's private." "The way you walk told me," Cho scoffed. "I was going to say flirting makes me feel uncomfortable," Jamie said. "What's wrong with the way I walk? I've worked as a NIM club kitty for years. It's my job to be in the middle of everything and never get in the way. Every species walks differently, but they all have one thing in common. If they have a penis, it leads them wherever they go. It's like an antenna always searching for a clearer signal." Cho shrugged. "That's not an indictment. It's just the way it is. I just wish the amount of pull was an indication of size." "How am I supposed to walk?" "With your legs," Cho said. "Oh, but not like Kali." "What's wrong with the way she walks?" "I may wear ears and a tail at work, but I'm not about to try walking digitigrade." "Huh. She walks like a felinoid," Cho said. "Do you think so?" Jamie noted. "I guess I haven't noticed." "Have you seen Kali?" Cho snickered. "I saw more than I wanted," Jamie grumbled. "Would you believe she forgot to get dressed when she came down earlier? Luckily there was a dust rag down here yesterday that was roughly bra-shaped. I covered her up with that so she wouldn't make the workers uncomfortable." "Please tell me it wasn't black and furry," Cho snickered. "Yeah, how did you know?" Jamie asked. "That's not a dust cloth." "Oh, Jamie blushed. "Would you mind not mentioning this to her?" "I don't know," Cho taunted. "The easiest way to bury information is to overwrite it with something more interesting. I don't suppose you know anything that would qualify." Cho smiled playfully. "After I helped wrap that thing around her, she took a small box onto the elevator with her. It looked like she was trying to hide it. Is that good enough?" Jamie asked nervously. "Probably not," Cho grinned. "I'm more interested in what her and her friend have planned." "I really don't know, but he did say something about popsicles," Jamie said. "Of course he did," Cho chuckled. She asked him to wait here while she got something at the bar," Jamie said quickly. "Still not good enough," Cho grinned deviously. "That's really all I know," Jamie pouted. "I mean, she complained about the way her dress fit, but..." "Why didn't you start with that?" Cho scolded. "If she bought a dress that doesn't fit, she had someone else in mind when she bought it. I can work with that." Cho took a step back onto the elevator as the door opened. She overrode the destination and sent it to the bottom. "Well, what do we have here?" Cho said as she picked up the discarded packaging, took a look through the instruction manual and looked it up on the net. "Death's Embrace, allowed for superior modulation of vaginal temperature." It was marketed for people with a necrophilia kink. The default settings gradually reduced the user's internal temperature to room temperature. However, it supported cooler temperatures as low as 40 degrees. Cho understood why Kali would try to conceal it. She sent a message to the manufacturer and copied the web admin, suggesting they incorporate the assistance of lesions into future marketing material. Then she added a few reviews under fake accounts, recommending that use to the product page. Cho took care of disposing of the evidence, then proceeded upstairs to make sure to add Kali's bra to the laundry. Jamie might have screwed up, but it was an honest mistake. While heading back down to the lobby, she remotely reviewed the camera cache files to get a better look at that dress. It was a cloth-lined leather mini with a matching top and fur-lined hood that strapped to the top. A set of rings ran along the waist for pouches, sheaths, or other attachments like maybe a pair of cuffs. It was a hooded wrap top and ruffled miniskirt made from snow-white leather. It looked like club wear intended for a really cold planet. It did look like something an Elysian woman would wear. It looked uncomfortable over her tails. He definitely bought it just to wear for him. It was cute. Cho looked forward to getting her hands on it when Kali was done with it. The new security settings implemented by G-Elite and Shadowfac wouldn't allow remote access to areas beyond the lobby. She grabbed the time code from the camera cache for when he was asked to wait for Kali and headed to the bar to see if there were any records of what she went in there for. From the looks of it, Kali had stashed a vial of Kulai and a couple doses of blue in her hip satchel before returning to the front. Well, that'll keep them going for a while. Cho headed to the security office to get a quick look at the name tag on his jumpsuit. It read Dmitri. She accessed the footage. He was wearing black jeans with a braided leather belt and a white short-sleeve shirt under it. Shadowfax still hadn't logged back in. Cho sent a message to Juliet asking if she was busy. Jean had a trick to access the local satellite network. Cho hoped she'd be willing to share her secret. An invitation to join a group chat was received. She declined. Cho wasn't comfortable talking with Juliet unless Tyrell was there. She decided to just try to track down Kali on her own. She used a MindWire ICD and preferred using thought-to-text messaging, both of which were tricky for cyberpaths to deal with, but Cho knew a few workarounds. Unfortunately, most of them require an active uplink. Cho headed out. Kali and Dmitri had a fairly substantial head start, but she had plenty of time to catch up with them. Kali brought 2 full vials of recreational Kaylani Blue with her, which should keep him running for up to 3 hours per dose. They just used a dropper to administer it at NIM. They didn't even sell it by the vial. Kaylani Blue wasn't a big deal, but Kulai Surprise was scary stuff. The advertising claimed it brought out a person's secret carnal nature while removing all their inhibitions. It was promoted as a means of self-discovery. They claimed that most people go through their entire lives without ever being bold enough to explore those desires. There was just no way of knowing what effect it would have until you take it. It was the sort of recreational drug you should only take around people you could trust explicitly. Cho checked the recorded footage of each camera she passed as she retraced Kali's path toward Flesh Row. Kali was having a bad tail day. Her black tail was working hard to try to manage the other two. Cho fought a pang of jealousy as she watched the footage of Kali offering Dmitri a black ribbon to tie up her tails. Kali fell to her knees. He said something. She got up and answered. The recording wasn't sensitive enough to pick up their conversation. Cho ran an online search for software to compensate for the missing audio. Terran Common lip-reading software was notoriously unreliable, and if they switched languages she was out of luck. She wrote up a subroutine to analyze the waveform and looped it through the lip-reading algorithm to find the closest meaning. Okay, Cho muttered to herself as she reviewed the data. Dmitri asked Kali if it hurt and her reply was, "Not so hard, that's my." Cho giggled. Well, he must have found the bottom of her stinger, Cho mused, then continued to giggle about the software's best match choice of clip. She pouted as Dmitri referred to it as a nice leash, and held Kali's bound tails as they continued down the street. Cho deleted the footage before switching to the next camera. Kali's ass swayed in tandem with her tails as they rounded the corner. She caught him staring and put a little extra sway into her hips for his viewing enjoyment. Flesh Row was really busy today, which wasn't surprising. Everyone wanted a last-minute fix before the vendors' conference. Everything north of the 5th block, even NIM, would be closed for a full local day or 2.3 days on the galactic calendar. Cho pushed past a cluster of meandering window shoppers and resumed her search for footage of Kali. Damn, Cho whispered as she found more. The pair of them had been caught on 3 cameras, 2 inside a store and 1 on the opposite side of the street. Dmitri had Kali pinned to the wall and was kissing her. Cho compiled the videos and rendered it out as a single scene and watched it play through. Dmitri squeezed Kali's tail, grabbed onto her hip with his other hand and swiveled, pinning her against a wall again. Kali gasped and quivered as he continued massaging the end of her tail. He pressed his body against hers and kissed her to stifle the sound she was making. Her knees almost buckled. Cho watched as Kali's breathing grew ragged. His body was firmly against hers. Her warm breath turned to steam in his cool mouth. He stopped. That's it, Strawberry complained. Why did he stop? I can see the bulge. Are you kidding? Cho blushed in embarrassment as she heard nearby laughter. Her outburst was louder than she realized. Dmitri stepped back while looking at Kali's eyes and smiled evilly. You lost your balance for a second there. Are you feeling better now? Asshole, Cho muttered under her breath as she watched them whispering to each other. Cho squirmed as she played it through a second time, hoping to pick up the audio. I'll get you for that, Kali whispered. If you don't I will, Cho grumbled. I hope so, he muttered. Dmitri eyed Kali's legs as he started walking away. I don't know about you but... Cho sighed. Kali looked down at her dress and blushed. Me too, Cho giggled as she deleted the store's footage and continued through the street camera files. Cho watched as Dmitri tugged on Kali's bound tails and began leading her further down the street. Cho continued down the street, retracing their path as she continued to observe the footage. You know that's not a leash, Kali scolded as she ran to his side. He sidestepped and offered his free hand. You're lucky you have a pretty cock, Kali giggled as she took his hand. She checked the audio recorded by a camera they'd stopped near. The audio was really clear here. Pretty, I know the word. I wonder why you use it. Well, if I think it is, Kali giggled. That's why I want you to be my model. Model? Cho wondered under her breath, making sure not to be overheard. For you to use? He asked. No, to be used on me, Kali said coyly. By who? My dick, my business, he said. It's for my... Wait. Kali massaged the top of her earpiece. Cho wondered which file she was searching for. His tablet beeped. He looked down at the picture and smiled. It's for her, Kali blushed. He nodded and closed the file. I consent to that. Oh, ma, suicide. The cameras were at the wrong angle to see the image, but Cho didn't need to see it to know who it was. There was only one person that could make Kali blush like that. Yeah, the radiator call, Kali giggled. I'm pretty sure that was her. She can't be with me right now, so. He started laughing as they walked away from the camera. Cho purged all the footage before switching to the next camera, then sent a message to Shadow Fak and Juliet asking if the phrase radiator call meant anything to them. Juliet sent a new group chat request. Cho ignored it while checking other cameras in the area. She couldn't access the pole-mounted recording system without security uplink access. Using Ogeron's access code while he's out of the system would trigger a system alarm. A camera at the bar across the street was angled right, but was well out of audio range. The recording devices above the door of the toy box were facing the wrong way for video, but may have captured some sound. She scanned through the footage from the camera across the street, hoping to find something interesting to use as a time reference for the toy box records. It showed Kali tightening her grip onto one hand, while grabbing onto the wrist of the other, which was holding her tail, and backing into the narrow alcove next to the store, pulling him along with her. This time my body is attached, next time hers maybe? The voice recording sounded like Dimitri, but the audio didn't match the video. She made some adjustments and attempted to match up the timeline. Yes, Kali said as she thrust her body against his, let go of him and started eagerly fumbling with his belt buckle. Juliet resent the group chat request as soon as the last one timed out. Fine, I'll join if you stop screwing with the footage, Strawberry grumbled. There's no way nobody reacted to that. Juliet, I am almost always working. I don't have time to deal with your indecision. Ask your questions in the group chat. I will answer when I can make time. Cho stopped reviewing the footage and considered leaving the call, but she wanted answers. Pink Ice, radiator call mean anything to you? Pink Ice, what model? Pink Ice, are you screwing with these cameras? Cho leaned against a wall while waiting for a response. Juliet, Starlight's prank, asked the princess. Juliet, dildo mold requested by Starlight. Juliet, no. Check its status in the security office and send me the error code. Pink Ice, it's not a hotel camera, it's in front of a shop. Cho had to wait for further replies. Juliet, I can't help from here. No network connection. Pink Ice, can you tell me how you access the security satellites? Juliet, no, but send me the security camera ID if that's what you're after. Cho sent her the network ID for the closest pole-mounted, security-managed block camera, and the timestamp from the last footage she'd viewed. Jean sent her an access link to the camera a couple minutes later with a starting file suggestion. The block cameras were incredibly advanced. They recorded everything within a 20-yard range. The data was intended to be reviewed by investigators after an incident. She had to write a filter to limit the input to the targeted area. She nudged the starting time back a few seconds and started the playback. I can't take this anymore, Kali whimpered. Now you've got me thinking about. This time my body is attached, next time hers maybe? Dimitri said. I think that's a reference to the dildo model, so his dick technically, Strawberry mused. Yes, Kali said as she thrust her body against his, let go of him and started eagerly fumbling with his belt buckle. I'm using a knack ability so nobody notices us, Kali reassured him to silence his protests. Psionics could affect people's minds but not electronics. Cho found a bench to sit on, closed her eyes and watched the scene play out. Call me master just today like slave girl? He asked as her tail slid out of his hand. Damn, Cho whispered under her breath. Anything, Kali whimpered as she rushed to unbutton his pants and pull down his zipper. Anything what? He asked with a devious grin. Anything, master, Kali breathed lustily. Dimitri didn't need any further encouragement. Cho squirmed on the bench uncomfortably as she stared at the image of his long, thick banana-shaped shaft sliding into Kali. Cho rewound the footage. She shifted the view angle upward a few degrees and advanced the scene slowly while observing the changes in Kali's facial expression as he penetrated her depths. Cho let out a long shuddering sigh. Turn around, he said in a soft commanding tone. Cho caught herself as she started to turn. She was getting far too into this. This had happened over a half hour ago and he wasn't talking to her. Yes, master, Kali whispered as she spun around on the balls of her feet. Cho's breathing became shallow as she continued to watch. Dimitri bent Kali forward. She braced her elbows against the wall. He placed a hand between her shoulder blades while forcefully yanking the base of her tails upward. He adjusted the angle of his hips then paused. "Please, master," Kali begged, then sighed deeply as he slid back into her. She braced herself with her palms and elbows against the wall as his hips pummeled her ass and his rigid cock plumbed her depths. His grunts and her moaning steadily grew louder and then suddenly went silent as if someone had muted the audio. Cho crossed her legs. She couldn't hear them anymore, but she knew Kali's facial expressions well enough to know she was nearing climax. He moved the hand from between her shoulder blades, knotted his fingers in her hair, and pulled her head back away from the wall as he continued to rock her back and forth with his hips. Her bottom lip began to quiver and her eyes teared up. Cho blushed, opening her eyes, and turned as if to look away as the scene continued playing out in her mind. Cho watched his hand pulling at a fistful of Kali's hair, the other yanking and lowering her ass by her tails, and his cock penetrating deep within her at a slight downward angle. His hips cradled her ass, pushing her forward toward the wall. Kali's breathing became more rapid as her back arched. Kali said something inaudibly, then his grasp on her tails and hair loosened. He kept himself firmly against her back, moving within her as her hands made their way up the side of the wall. He was unrelenting. Cho felt a little jealous and her legs bounced as she continued watching. His body locked. Kali bucked her hips twice. "Show's over," Cho whispered as she watched him stagger backward and lean against the wall. Cho winced as a whistling noise broke the silence. Cho noticed she'd missed 2 messages in the group chat while she'd been preoccupied. "G-Leet, Stardust would like you to submit a copy of your findings for her review. G-Leet, I'd appreciate a copy of that scan file if possible. Pink Ice, it's a bit racy, are you sure? G-Leet, it's for Stardust. I have no interest in it beyond that. Pink Ice, I haven't finished reviewing it. G-Leet, get to it. Make sure to remove any evidence of local law violations." Cho frowned. It seemed like a lot more fun before Jean turned it into an assignment. She continued playing back the footage. "Master," Kali fluttered her eyes while clasping her hands under her chin. "Did I do good?" "That's so wrong," Cho sighed as she zoomed out from the headshot then resumed. "Did you pick any of that Kailani blue when we were at the hotel?" he asked while trying not to smile. "Yes, master," Kali grinned. "Then you did great," he laughed softly. "Give me a minute or two to wind down," he teased. "The idea of you 2 fucking each other with my dick got me worked up and calling me master helped." "Nope," Kali grinned deviously. "She'll be fucking me with your dick. I use my tails on her." He paused for a moment to find the words then slowly said, "Fantasy revised." A couple walking down the street turned their heads. She must have disabled her privacy ability. "Hey, Dimitri," Kali said hesitantly. "It's okay to use it to get a rise out of you, but the master thing just isn't me." "Really?" he said. "Thank you, play along." While watching them take a breather before making their way to the toy box, Cho cleared the compromising files from the bar across the street and blanked out the audio recorded by nearby stores. Cho made backups of the relevant file from the block camera before removing them. Then she encrypted and compressed the file and scheduled it to be sent to G-Leet through the Strawberries patch server. The actual file data was saved to her left earring. "Pink Ice, about that scan. What's in it for me?" "G-Leet, we'll be plotting the 3D model against a medical scan, then making adjustments. Want to help?" Cho really wanted to but was worried about Jean judging her work. She didn't have any experience with something like that. She'd probably just screw it up. "Pink Ice, I better not. But I'll make sure to get you a copy of the file if you tell me where they went after leaving here." "G-Leet, there's an appointment in her name scheduled at Illicit. You didn't even look, did you? I won't coddle you like Shadowfac. The strongest trees grow in rocky soil. We know you're better than this. You just need to accept it." Cho disconnected from the group chat.